Hello, this is Quadratic Formula and Imaginary Numbers unit in Mr. Kenzie's Integrated Algebra class. This is day 3 of the unit, which should be on 3/26, so next week on Thursday. These two questions you will be doing on your own. It says solve by the quadratic formula for both of them. Okay, these roots should be rational. These ones you're going to have to simplify the radical. Today we're going to talk about imaginary numbers. An imaginary number is defined by the letter I. All right, like if I would take any number, all right, if I plugged in the square root of -23, I'm going to get an error, and it says non-real answer. Well, another name for non-real is imaginary. And the reason why is because the negative underneath the radical. What we do for these, we need to simplify. We're going to break it up into kind of two parts. I'm going to rewrite the square root of -25 as the square root of -1 times the square root of 25. The square root of -1, by definition, is I. So this -1, square root of -1, and I can even go one further step and break these into two parts like this. Square root of -1 turns into an I. Square root of 25 is 5. So my answer would be written like this. I5 means the same thing. However, in a math textbook, on a test, on a homework, that's how it would be written on a multiple choice question. We're going to move over to number 3. Same thing. If you plug this in your calculator, you're going to get an error. And it's because the negative underneath and an even index. Index is the number inside the check. There's nothing there, so it's assumed to be a 2. I'm going to rewrite this as the square root of -1 times the square root of 64. I know the square root of -1 comes outside as an I. Square root of 64 is 8. So my answer is 8I. I'm going to continue, and I'm going to look at number 5. So for number 5, we have a coefficient. So that means we have a 6 on the outside. We're going to multiply times whatever comes outside of this. I'm going to rewrite this. Can't plug this in my calculator because I won't get an answer. So I have 6 times the square root of -1 times the square root of 100. Square root of -1 comes outside as an I. Square root of 100 comes outside as a 10. So I bring this 6 down. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply. 6 times 10i is 60i. Continuing. Now we have two terms on the outside. I cannot add or subtract these two because this a is attached to a radical. It's very similar to if I had like 3 minus 8x. They're not like terms. So now I'm going to continue with this and what we were working on previously. So I have 3 minus 8. That's going to stay on the outside. I have rewrite square root of -121 is square root of -1 times the square root of 121. The square root of -1, by definition, comes outside as an I. The square root of 121 comes outside as an 11. So I have 3 minus 8 times. Now, because of PEMDAS, we multiply before we subtract. So we have 8 times 11i. And this actually is going to be my answer. These are not like terms because this says an I and this 3 does not. We're going to continue with number 8. So for number 8, same thing. Now we just have a subtraction or a difference problem. Now rewrite this first one. 4 times the square root of -1 times the square root of 100. The -1 comes outside as an I. Square root of 100 comes outside as a 10. So we have 4 times 10i, which would simplify to 40i. This next one, so I have minus 6. I'm going to rewrite this as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 400. And negative 1, square root of negative 1 comes outside as an I. 400 is a perfect square. That is 20. Don't forget to bring this negative 6 down. Now we're going to multiply these. Negative 6 times 20i would give me negative 120i. Now these are like terms, so they both have just an I to the first power. 40i minus 20i would give me negative 80i. So now in addition to the 2 warm-up questions, you'll be doing 2, 4, 7, and 9. And we have one more question that we are going to work on together on the next page. So we're going to use the quadratic formula, except now we are going to have an imaginary root. We'll have an I in our answer. First thing we want to do is make sure this is in standard form. It is. So now I want to state my A, B, and C values. A is number in front of x squared, which is 1. B is number in front of x. And C is the constant. So now I am going to plug this into my quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And then I'm going to plug in. And then simplify. So I have x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus. And remember, my radicand, I'm going to use my calculator for. You can do it by hand. 4 squared is 16. 16 minus 4 times 1 times 5, so 16 minus 20 will give me a negative 4. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this. So I have x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus. I'm going to rewrite this part inside as negative 1 times 4. The negative 1 comes outside the radical as an I. And the 4 comes outside as a 2. Next thing that we are going to do is we're going to turn this into fractions. So we have negative 4 over 2 plus or minus 2i over 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is equal to negative 2. 2i divided by 2 should be just I, or 1i. You can leave your answer like that, or you can rewrite this as x equals negative 2 plus I, x equals to negative 2 minus I. Those are 2 possibilities you can write your answer. Make sure you finish the questions that we did not finish in class, including the warm-up, for your homework. Thank you.